Hello, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm here to do a review of Ghostly Campfire Stories of Western Canada by Barbara Smith. So one of the reasons I read this book, it wasn't the main reason, but one of them was because I saw a video on Books and Lala's channel where she basically read the lowest rated books on Goodreads that she had on her TBR, and this was one of them. Now, when I watched her video, she said it had like 2.5 stars or something on Goodreads. It now has an average rating of 3 point something, which I don't think is that bad. Yeah, so I read this, and I gotta say, I quite enjoyed it. I think the only reason that this got such a low rating is because it's a collection of short stories which are based on folklore and stuff like that from people who live in Western Canada. And yeah, the point I'm trying to make is each story, like this is only 140 something pages, and it even says on the back that there are, what does it say? There are over 30 stories in this book. Most of them are 1 or 2 pages each. A couple of them are 4 or 5 pages. One of them is like 7 pages. And people are also saying it's billed as ghostly campfire stories. And people were kind of saying, the reviews and stuff that I read were kind of saying that people were a bit confused about this book because it wasn't really to do with ghosts. Which I think is rubbish. I think every single story has some form of ghost or spectral being in the story, so I don't know where that came from. But yeah, I thought actually that it was pretty good. The writing is really good. And yeah, I think the reason people don't like very short stories is because in 2 or 3 pages they kind of feel like they don't have enough time to bond with the characters or to really progress the story to its full potential, which I kind of agree with, but I kind of like the fact that these are shorter. For me, it makes them easier to get through. And to highlight the writing style and how good I think the stories are, I'm actually going to read one of my favourite stories from the book. It's only 2 or 3 pages long, and it's called Children of the Tracks. Not far away from a campground in rural Saskatchewan, perhaps the one you're staying at right now, some train tracks cut sharply across an old country road. One summer's evening, 3 teenage sisters, Katie, Emma and Monica, borrowed their parents' car and left their family's campsite to go exploring. The adventure was Katie's idea. She'd heard a spooky story about that railway crossing and was anxious to check it out. Her youngest sister, Monica, complained that they didn't have to leave the campground for a scary story. After all, everyone in the family had been telling ghost stories around the campfire since their holiday began, but Katie shook her head. It wouldn't be the same if I just tell you the story somewhere else. This is a true ghost story, and you won't believe me unless you see it for yourself. Right, a supposedly true ghost story. Considering there's no such thing as ghosts, it's going to have to be good, Monica complained. And coming way out here is supposed to make all the difference, eh? Emma added. Katie ignored their comments, and they all drove to a dusty old road that was really not much more than a dirt path. We'll have to get the car washed before we get back to the campground, Monica pointed out. Dad'll be furious if we bring it back all covered in dust. Katie just nodded. After bumping along on the trail for a few more meters, churning up clouds of dirt and hearing stones hit the car's undercarriage, the girls came to a slight incline and some railway tracks. Katie drove the car up the slope, only stopping when the car straddled the level tracks. This isn't exactly safe, you know, Emma pointed out, but Katie was already out the car and opening the trunk. What are you doing? Monica asked, clearly annoyed with her sister's shenanigans. I'm conducting a scientific experiment. With Mum's bag of flour. Now when we stop to get the car washed, we'll have to buy a bag of flour too. But Katie wasn't listening. Instead, she was sprinkling flour along the car's back bumper. She's lost it, Monica said to Emma, who nodded in agreement. A moment later, the oldest girl climbed back into the car. Now I'm going to tell you the story I heard, and we'll just see if you don't think it's the freakiest one ever. Okay, well, we're here now, I guess, Emma acknowledged. Go for it, but this had better be worth it. Katie smiled that big sister superior smile that younger sisters all over the world know too well. Then she began to tell the tale. A poor family once lived around here. There were 7 of them living in a little shack of a house. 5 kids. One evening, their father piled all of those kids into the back of his old beaten-up pickup truck and told them they were all going to visit their grandmother in a nearby town. Trips to Grandma's house were rare, so the kids were as happy as could be. Their father had only driven as far as the tracks, right where we are now, when the old truck stalled. The father wasn't concerned. He knew exactly what to do to get the truck to start again, but on this particular night, it seemed that he didn't have enough time to nurse the cranky engine back to life. They were stalled on the tracks at the worst possible moment. A massive freight train was speeding toward them. Katie had the other's attention as she continued. He jumped out of the cab, but before he could save the kids, the train was on them. The wreck was terrible. People for miles around heard the grinding scream of twisting metal. The children, though, didn't make a sound. They didn't have time. They were killed, all 5 of them. Is this really a true story? Emma asked. Katie nodded and continued. A few months after the accident, a woman was driving over the tracks when she ran out of gas. She was stranded right here on the railway crossing where she knew all those children had died not long before. That alone would have likely sent a shiver running down her back, but the fact that a train was barrelling down the track toward her would absolutely have done it. She was about to jump and run for safety when the car suddenly started to roll. It rolled right over the tracks, down the incline on the other side, and stopped at the bottom. The train roared by, and the woman and her car were safe. Coincidence? Monica remarked in a tentative voice. Ah, but that isn't the only time that happened. About a year after that, someone had a tyre blow out right on this spot, and the rim wouldn't roll over the rails. Again, there was a train coming, and again, in the nick of time, the car mysteriously moved out of harm's way. It's happened plenty more times since then. Everybody around here thinks the same thing. Those people were saved by the spirits of the little kids who died when the train hit them. For a moment, none of the 3 sisters spoke. Finally, Emma whispered, You think the ghosts of those 5 brothers and sisters are protecting everyone from meeting the same fate they did? She seemed to be on the verge of accepting Katie's theory as the truth. Monica was not so easily convinced, however. She just wanted them to get on their way. Mum and Dad are going to be concerned about us if we're too late, and don't forget we still have to buy flour and get the car washed. That comment spurred Emma to ask, Yeah, why the flour, Katie? As her older sister started to reply, her voice was drowned out by the sound of a whistle. They looked down the track and saw a huge train bearing down on them. Start the car! Monica and Emma yelled in unison, but Katie just sat there with a small smile on her lips. Finally, she said quietly, Let's stay and see what happens. We're going to get killed. That's what's going to happen. The two younger sisters jumped from the car and tried to pull Katie out as well. The train is getting close. And it was. The train's headlight was getting brighter and brighter, its whistle louder and more insistent. But Katie stubbornly stayed in the car. Get out! Monica and Emma screamed over and over, but their sister's face showed a look of calm confidence. The next few moments were chaotic. The intense white headlight of the train became blindingly bright as it drew closer. The blaring whistle almost drowned out the sound of the train's grinding brakes and Katie's sister's screams. But Katie sat quietly waiting, and soon her foolish daring and patience were rewarded. The car began to rock back and forth a little before slowly rolling forward. The vehicle cleared the tracks and rolled down the other side with only seconds to spare before the train thundered past. The car came to a stop, and Katie climbed out, smiling. Her sisters were in no mood for pleasantries. They hugged her and yelled at her at the same time. I knew it, Katie bragged. You nearly died just now, that's what I know, Emma said. All this for the sake of a ghost story, Monica added. This is no story, Katie told them as she walked back to the car. As she walked to the back of the car and pointed at the bumper. Look at this. Her sisters did as she said. They could hardly believe their eyes. There, on the car's bumper, in the dusting of flour, there were 5 distinct sets of child-sized handprints. So, yeah, that was my favourite story from the book, and to me that is kind of the height of where the writing and the storytelling is in this book. Like I said, I didn't think it was a bad book. I thought it was pretty good, and I hope that story proved my point. Yeah, so I thought this was pretty good. I've read every story and enjoyed every story, and yeah, I said those are my thoughts on Ghostly Campfire Stories of Western Canada. I gave this one 3 stars. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you wish, you may subscribe. And I will see you all again very soon. Goodbye.